Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the return of growth stocks outperforming. Tesla stock specifically up about 1.25% today, even though you got some pretty bad numbers out of the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey, the second lowest reading ever. Yeah. Usually the markets respond or would respond negatively to that. In fact, they're not. The S&P's not doing much of anything, but your growth stocks are outperforming today after the underperformance yesterday. And I will discuss why this is positive for markets, generally speaking. And, well, Tesla specifically. We do have some news, and I want to share my overall perspective on Tesla stock here and now. Ladies and gentlemen, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already, and let's get started. So building permits came in weaker than expected at 1.41 million today. The expectation was 1.45 million, and housing starts came in at 1.36 million. The estimate was 1.37 million. So nothing good to really report there. Building permits month over month even dropped about 5%. The expectation was only a 1% drop. So really no good news in any of the other data. Really no good news anywhere, okay? Michigan Consumer Sentiment came in at 50.8. The expectation was actually we would improve to 53.4. So, yeah, a really bad number today. 5-year inflation expectations came in at 4.6%. Last month was 4.4%, and the expectation was 4.5%. So 5-year inflation expectations up more than expectations. Consumer expectations came in at 46.5. The estimate was 48. So really bad there. Current conditions came in at 57.6. The expectation was 59.6. So again, missed there as well. Look at that. 1-year inflation expectations last month were 6.5%. The expectation was 6.6%. You came in at 7.3%. That is insane. Okay, now here is the underlying report. The University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment for the U.S. dropped sharply to 50.8 in May of 2025, down from 52.2 in April and well below market expectations of 53.4, according to preliminary estimates. This marks the 5th consecutive monthly decline, the lowest reading since June of 2022, and the second lowest on record, as mounting inflation expectations and renewed concerns over tariffs continue to weigh on sentiment. Both the current conditions index and expectations gauge worsened. Current assessments of personal finances sank nearly 10% on the basis of weakening incomes. Tariffs were spontaneously mentioned by nearly 3/4 of consumers, up from almost 60% in April. Uncertainty over trade policy continues to dominate consumers' thinking about the economy. On the trade front, inflation expectations for the year ahead surged to 7.3%, a new 1981 high from 6.5%. And long-run inflation expectations edged up to 4.6% from 4.4%. So this is the highest one-year inflation expectations you've had since 1981. What's fascinating about this survey is if you know Trump supporters, okay, I'm just going to say it like this. They don't expect inflation, right? They expect, that it's going to take some time for the economy to get better, but they're not expecting inflation. They're not expecting a recession. They actually think we're on the right path. So this University of Michigan survey, I don't know who the hell they're surveying. They must be like heavy Democrats, because if you talk to half of the population out there in America, they actually feel pretty good right now, all things considered, right? So there's definitely some weird things going on within this survey that don't make a whole lot of sense. But even despite that, your growth stocks today are outperforming. The S&P is up 0.1%, like not a terrible day, not a great day either. You're just continuing to kind of grind higher. The S&P breaking above that 490 level gives us probably a cleaner path to 600 on the SPY. I do expect a little bit of a slowdown of this rally at some point, but the fact that markets are going up on quote unquote bad news is definitely a good sign. And as I talked about in the video, yesterday, I think Wall Street really misinterpreted yesterday. Okay. People were focused on the, inflation comments from Walmart and from Jerome Powell, but they did not focus enough on the comments from Walmart of a consumer that's still spending, that's actually accelerating in April and in May. Nobody really paid attention to that on Wall Street. And I think that was the big news. I think that was the silver lining, that we don't know what's going to happen with inflation, but we do know that the consumer is spending, that it doesn't look like we're plummeting into a recession. If we're not plummeting into a recession, then that's bullish for stocks. That's bullish for earnings. And I think ultimately the 20% tariffs on fentanyl get lowered as well, get paused. And inevitably we end this thing with a 10% tariff on China, with China opening their markets. And that could be really big for earnings. Even in the news yesterday, just to kind of point this out, China approved Invisalign, like the retainers to straighten your teeth. That market just opened up for Invisalign. Okay. What other companies are next? How could that impact earnings, right? These are things that I think Wall Street has to take some time to gauge and to actually, price in. See, Wall Street moves very slow and then they move all at once, right? The bears are not going to be super quick to throw in the bear towel and turn bullish. But when they do, they're all going to start at the same time. Okay, I don't know what the data point is, if it's a switch from Powell, what it is, but there is a lot of positive things happening from a deregulation perspective, from lower taxes, from, again, the China market opening up, the second largest economy, second largest population in the world, 1.3 billion people. I mean, these are material positives that Wall Street is going to have to embrace. And there is way too many bulls for where we are in this economy, right? Or way too many bears. We're not going into a recession right away. Who knows if we are going into a recession at all? With that, I think you have to get allocated to stocks, and that's why I think a 20% rally into year end is coming. Now that 20% rally puts the S&P at about 700. So you heard it first. I think the S&P is going to 700 by the end of this year, which from here is about an 18.3% rally. Again, just my expectations, could be wrong there, but I do expect that people are going to get FOMO to get back into this market here over the next couple of months. Now, with that said, today, NVIDIA says they are not sending GPU designs to China after reports of new Shanghai operation. Trump says that Republicans must unite behind this big, beautiful bill. He says that Republicans must unite behind the one big, beautiful bill. Not only does it cut taxes for all Americans, but it will kick millions of illegal aliens off of Medicaid to protect it for those who are the ones in real need. He says the country will suffer greatly without this legislation. With their taxes going up 65%, it will be blamed on the Democrats, but that doesn't help our voters. We don't need grandstanders in the Republican Party. Stop talking and get it done. Goldman Sachs today has raised their 2025 China GDP growth forecast to 4.6% from previously being at 4%. Mexican President Sheinbaum says Mexico's Foreign Minister Embarad to continue talking about steel and aluminum tariffs. And Ukrainian Foreign Minister spokesperson says that Zelensky is ready for direct negotiations with Putin. Chinese automaker XPeng has unveiled the next generation version of its P7 EV sedan for global markets with a starting price of $42,000, with deliveries that start later this year. Toyota has unveiled a new outdoor-focused EV in the US called BZ Woodland, a bigger sibling of the BZ EV. JP Morgan Chase increased its stake in Tesla by 9.5%, or 3.43 million shares in Q1 2025, a new record high according to a new 13F filing with the SEC. So some firms and banks were actually out buying the dip in Tesla, and I bet they feel real good about that now. Tesla has introduced a new program that gives a $1,000 discount off any new Tesla to verified students, teachers, first responders, and military veterans, retirees, and active duty members, their spouses, and surviving spouses. Quote, made in America for everyday heroes. Reuters posted an exclusive article that says Musk took leased cars back so Tesla could use them as robotaxis. Instead, Tesla sold them. Sawyer Merritt comments, this is a useless article. Reuters acts as if we already didn't know Tesla has been reselling vehicles after consumer leases ended and not keeping them for their future robotaxi network. Tesla is a business and naturally it doesn't want to sit on excess inventory. So what does it do? It resells the off-lease cars as used vehicles, sometimes with added software options to improve margins. Anyone that wanted to know how close Tesla was to launching a robotaxi network just needed to try the latest version of FSD supervised. FSD V12 was a huge leap forward, but it wasn't until V13 when more people in the community felt that Tesla was close. And Sawyer Merritt says that he drove 2 hours using Tesla's FSD V13.2.9 with 0 critical disengagements. Part of this drive was in the rain and part of it was dry. And he says he just sit back and thought, damn, I just completed a 2-hour trip and the car drove itself the entire time without needing me to take over once. Tesla has released its first ever video of FSD supervised being used in Australia. This is a right-hand drive FSD, which even Tesla themselves has said will take longer to develop. Tesla will add Chipotle executive Jack Hartung to its board of directors and audit committee in June, the company said today. Quote, over the past 20 years, under Jack's financial leadership, Chipotle has seen significant growth with over 3,700 restaurants today across the United States, Canada, the UK, France, Germany, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. Jack was named CFO of the Year by Orange County Business Journal and Best CFO in the restaurant category by Institutional Investors. Jack will be retiring from his executive role on June 1st and transitioning to a senior advisor role with Chipotle. Jack serves on the board of directors for Portillo's, The Honest Company, and ZocDoc. And also being reported today, the U.S. will start discussions later this year on troop reductions in Europe, U.S. NATO ambassador says. Now, in option activity today from hedge funds and institutions, you have seen 113 different trades totaling $58 million with a positive order value of 65%. So not a huge volume day as far as hedge fund option activity, but definitely more on the positive side. Now, short sellers today are covering about 200,000 shares, and you do have about 3% short interest of free float, about $28 billion currently sold short. As I've mentioned in prior videos now, really once you get above 350 is where I think you start to get into a bit of short squeeze territory. The stock's at about $349. There's a little bit of a speed bump right now around 350. Slowing down a little bit, but once you break above that, that's where the momentum could really start to kick in here. And again, as I've talked about before, once you break the 100-day moving average and the RSI goes above 70, historically that leads to very strong rallies. So from a technical perspective, a historical perspective, this would not be the time to, bet against Tesla. And I think there's still a lot of people on Wall Street that are making that mistake in betting against Tesla. And, they're going to regret it here pretty soon. Again, in my view, I think Tesla could be a $450 stock over the next month or two. So another $100 per share could be in the cards. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on all of this down below in the comment section. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.